What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legion Season 2, Episode 1, Chapter 9. Very excited to get back into this, but before I start, I do want to say, first of all, late night review, so it is going to be quieter. I am going to be doing the 3 episodes that have started so far. The 4th episode is happening tonight, but obviously I'm not going to get around to it. I might, though, have to watch the 3rd episode tomorrow morning, so if the 3rd of these episodes is a little bit louder, I apologize. I hope it doesn't startle you or anything. But yeah, so I want to finish these 3 and then try to get around to some of the other episodes before I come back to watch episode 4. So anyway, with all that being said, yeah, start of season 2, and so far, I'm loving what I see. It's one of those funny things where coming into this season, my thought is, how can they top season 1? How can they do anything different than season 1? And so far, it's continued to astound me. And I find it ironic because Noah Hawley, the guy that produced this, also produced Fargo, the TV series. And after season 1 of that, my thought was, how can they do anything different? How can they have a season 2 of this? They did it. It was fantastic. After season 2, I'm thinking, how can they do season 3? They did it, and I haven't seen all of it, but what I saw was fantastic. And so coming into this season, I'm thinking the same exact thing. How can they top season 1? I know there's a cliffhanger, but how can you have a season 2 that is not only better but also different? Because you don't want to just do the same thing all over again. And Farouk is still out there. David was taken up into the ball, the orb, whatever. And so there were things that they could expand on, but I didn't want it to be the same old thing over again. Farouk is still on the run. Well, it's going to be them trying to fight him this season. That's not it. He is pretty much still the main villain, but it's different now. Things have changed, and I love how they've done it so far. First of all, I like the fact that David comes back, and it's only been a day for him, at least in his mind, and for everybody else, it's been weeks or months. I can't remember the exact time frame that they gave, but things have changed. We see Sid not happy with David at all. But yeah, we see they're working now with Division 3 because Division 3 realized, oh, these mutants are actually good guys and they can help us fight the bad guys. So I like the fact that they're kind of incorporating that together. We get to see the leader of these divisions, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. They explained what all those divisions were, but I kind of got lost. I'm like, what are they talking about now? But yeah, apparently Division 3 is a lot more boots on the ground type of thing. But the leader kind of reminds me of GLaDOS a little bit, especially the way that the beings around whoever it is talks. It sounds exactly like GLaDOS. But apparently this being controls all these women that have mustaches, and those women talk for them, and they've got this pot over their head, and I don't know. I don't know if this is just there to be weird and zany, or if this is actually going to mean something later on. And that is, I will say, that is the one thing, if there's anything that I'm going to criticize so far, it would be the fact that sometimes I don't know what's supposed to be important and what's supposed to be just kind of there. The dance scene. Obviously, it's kind of representative, but it's also there to be weird and zany. That's part of why they're dancing around. That's why Carrie, when he's doing all the stuff, he's dancing, because that's just what this show can be sometimes. But there are some other scenes where, the final scene, where we see David in the club, and he sees all these people, and it's very dark, and you see beings moving around, and then all of a sudden he's standing in the doorway, and I don't really know what it is. It's shot so dark that I have no clue what it's supposed to mean, and yet it feels like the show wants me to be shocked, oh my gosh, he's standing in the doorway over someone. I'm like, but who? You haven't really shown me anything that made me think, oh, that's supposed to be important. So I don't know, sometimes it is a very dark show, I know, but there are some times where I feel like they're not being very clear what something is and whether or not it's supposed to be important or just kind of zany, like the show is. So that's the only real complaint I have about it. Maybe I'll learn in the next episode what that whole final scene meant. But aside from that, everything else really enjoying. Enjoy getting to see everybody, working with Division 3, the different sections they're in, it definitely fits all of their personalities. Uh, I will say the one thing kind of indifferent on right now is Melanie. In the first season, it felt like she had a very important purpose. It felt like, okay, she is clearly there to sort of be the guiding hand for David. She's leading the school. It felt like she was very important. So far in this first episode, it feels like she's just kind of there. She hasn't really been given a point yet. We see she's very broken up about what happened with Oliver, obviously. But yeah, I don't know, maybe they'll give her more of a point later, but right now it just seems kind of out of place. Let's see, a couple other things that I was indifferent about. I will definitely say, the whole leader of Division 3, indifferent about that. Like I said, don't know whether it's supposed to be just kind of goofy or if that's something that's actually important and is going to plan for later. I think that's about it for the stuff I was indifferent about. The things I've really liked. First of all, I like the story so far. Like I said, how are you going to top season 1 but also make it different? Well, now there's a different mission. It's not just, oh, we've got to stop Farouk. Now it's actually, you have a plan. We see that apparently he's looking for his body because his consciousness, which was living inside of David, is obviously very powerful. We've seen that. However, once he finds his body, then he'll be unstoppable. And that's, when Professor X first stopped him, apparently he was in his body, and that's how he managed to stop him, was taking his consciousness out of his body and putting it inside of David. I think that's kind of the gist that I got from it. So basically he's looking for his body, which means the good guys are also looking for his body to destroy it and stop him forever. Makes sense. It's pretty interesting. On top of that, we see that apparently Farouk has infected a bunch of people with this kind of psychological virus, which, I mean, it is kind of like weird and zany, which fits the show. They're sitting there, all of them just like clicking their teeth. Don't really know what that's about. But I kind of feel like this is just something to, I guess, maybe stop Division 3, focus more on this than on that, maybe. I don't know, it is one of those things where I don't really know what it means, if it's going to mean anything, if it's something else entirely, but it is kind of weird and kind of spooky as well, just seeing all these people like frozen in place, clicking their teeth. Like the fact that, we get to see a very emotional scene, the emotion in the first season was there, but I don't really remember a lot of scenes sticking out. But that scene where we see David in the orb and Sid is in there as well. I will say that scene definitely stands out because it is very emotional and it's very quiet. He's talking to her. He has a lot of funny lines in it as well, but we see that she's, showing him all of these things. She's drawing. For some reason, she can't speak. Not really sure why. Apparently, this is a future version of herself that sent this orb to capture him and explain this. But he's like, yeah, he's looking for his body. Okay. And then she writes, help him. I don't really know what this means, honestly. I do have a few theories about all of the stuff going on, but honestly, I don't know how many of them are going to be right. I will say the few theories that have stood out to me the most. First of all, the whole helping him find his body, I feel like part of it is if you try to stop Farouk from finding his body, he's just going to cause more chaos. He's spreading this virus. If you do help him, though, it also feels like, well, you help him and then he finds his body and becomes all powerful. But on the other side of it, if you don't help him and he continues to try to infect people with this virus, it feels like nobody's ever going to find the body. And they have to find it if they want to stop him because they have to destroy his body. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and I like the fact that it's a difficult decision. Do you help him and possibly have him in the world, or do you not help him and possibly have him in the world? It feels like either way he gets what he wants. He causes a lot of chaos. So I like the fact that it's not an easy decision. It's something that really is difficult to try to figure out. Also, another theory that I'm wondering about, we do see at one point Sid is going to check in on these people. Apparently they've got all the people in this room that have been affected with the psychological virus, and this voice keeps talking over and over again, saying, if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, you might have contracted the virus, and it goes through the list of symptoms, and one of it was repetition of noises. And I don't know if they're just doing this like to maybe make us think, oh, maybe we're infected with the virus. But at one point it says repetition of noises, and then it cuts outside to Sid, and it says repetition of noises again. I kind of wonder, is she infected? Because it does it later on in the episode too. Like, we hear something get repeated again. I'm wondering if maybe she's been infected too. Because we do see there's one scene where she and David meet after he finally comes back and they've woken him up. We see that they meet and then they go into their little mind palace that he's created for them, and they sleep together and everything, and they have this love scene. I'm wondering if maybe that has infected her now, because he was infected with the virus, but because he's got these telepathic powers, it's not affecting him in the same way as it is all these other people. And so, maybe because he has the virus, but it's dormant inside of him, because it doesn't affect him, it did transfer to her. And I'm wondering if maybe we're going to see that soon. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe I'm just imagining things. But it does kind of make me wonder, what if that's the case? What if she's infected in these little things that I'm noticing? What if that is symptoms that she's showing? So I'm curious about that. We also see there's this narration that takes over in a couple scenes. Not really sure what the narration was about, but it seems like it's kind of explaining some of the story. Some of it I did catch, some of it I didn't. But there is one scene where we see like this baby bird being born, and then we see another like dark bird being born. It's like all gross and like sludge-like, and it's crawling and it kills and eats the baby bird. And then we see Lenny pick it up, and then she's like, I don't know, feeding it or something. I don't know what she was doing. But then we see in the Mind Palace, we see David and Sid in the same bed, and then that little bird is crawling towards them. And of course, we also know that David at one point was with Oliver and Lenny at the club. So I'm wondering if, they're kind of playing with this idea that, oh, can David be trusted because he was with Farouk, and maybe Farouk is still inside of him, still attached to him. I'm wondering if maybe the reason he doesn't remember is because Farouk is causing him not to remember. And it's like taking away his memories, but he's infected him with the virus, and is using David as kind of like a way to pass on, like a carrier, passing on the virus to all these people in Division 3 to cause them to, crash pretty much. Anytime David uses his telepathic powers to read people's minds, it's like infecting them. So I don't know if that's part of the plan. I still don't quite know what he was doing with them, because we see that dance scene, we see the scene at the end of it. I don't really know what he was doing in that off time, and I feel like it's probably going to be important later on. But yeah, so all these different questions, all these different theories. I think that's about all that I wanted to talk about in the first episode, though. Overall, it's very good. Yes, there are some scenes that do get a little confusing because it's shot very dark, and so you can't always tell what's going on, but overall, really enjoying it. Really looking forward to seeing what else happens this season. So now on to the second episode. See you guys there. And now on to episode 2, chapter 10. So, yeah, I kind of lied a little bit, but it wasn't really a lie. I tried to watch the second episode last night, but for whatever reason the FX app was just not working. So I wasn't able to watch it last night. So, watching it this morning. But yeah, so the second episode kicks back up exactly where we left off. We see a bit more of David talking to Oliver and Lenny as Farouk. And, we see they're going from what he learned in the first episode about Farouk's location. And then they go there and he's not there. And at the beginning of the episode, we can see that Farouk is asking for a diversion. And so, sure enough, they go out into the middle of the desert. Farouk's not there, and then all of a sudden, in walks Oliver and Lenny to Division 3, takes out a few guards, and then I don't know exactly what they were searching for. Something about a monk that apparently might have the location to Farouk's body. And we see there was that guy, the bald guy that we saw in the club. At first I thought it might have been Farouk, but now I'm thinking it's the monk because he's hiding out in the room full of the people with the chattering teeth. So I'm wondering if he's hiding in there himself, or if the people in charge of Division 3 are hiding him in there. Whatever the case, obviously Farouk is trying to find him to find his body. But what I find really interesting about this is it feels like this season is taking a bit of a turn. Because what I thought was going to happen was it was going to turn into a bit of a race to try to find Farouk's body. Even though Sid was saying help him find his body, I was like, is she saying like help him because he's the only one that can get them to his body, or like what is she trying to say? Well, we find out in this episode because not Oliver, I guess Carrie somehow manages to turn the device into kind of a way to move David's consciousness into the future, and so he ends up finding future Sid again and is talking to her, and this time she's actually talking, so I don't know why she couldn't talk that one time, but she tells him that David did find Farouk's body and killed him, just like that. But what came after was this plague that wiped out most of the human race. And I'm wondering if it's going to turn out to be the psychological virus that they assumed Farouk was infecting people with. It's not actually him, it's something else entirely. And so I'm starting to get this picture that, David talks to Farouk later in the episode and kind of, they have a little bit of a battle. And he says, look, I'm going to help you, but just no more killing people. And he says, well, it's less fun, but I'll do it. And pretty much tells him, I'll be in your debt if you help me find my body. And so I'm kind of getting this picture that maybe the reason Sid told him to help find Farouk's body for him is because they need Farouk on their side to stop whatever plague this is that attacks the human race. That's kind of the picture I'm getting. If that's the case, that's very interesting. So, once again, I'm not really sure where this season is headed, but I'm loving it so far. I'm loving where they're taking it. It's kind of a bit twisty, very mysterious, not really sure what's going to happen next. I don't know. I love whenever a show can do that, really play with your expectations. On top of that, a couple other things that I really enjoyed in this episode. First of all, I like the scene where Lenny and Oliver were attacking Division 3, just because it was kind of that whimsical sort of things are not happy, but they sound very happy. They're killing guards left and right as they're singing this happy song. They end up both taking on both Carries. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what they did, but it's pretty interesting. I don't know exactly what they did to them, but we see Oliver, the girl Carrie steps out of the body in front of Oliver, and all of a sudden the guy Carrie gets dragged down by Lenny to another room, and then Oliver grows like super big, and girl Carrie gets frozen in place, and then guy Carrie pulls out a spoon from the coffee he just had and like holds it up, and then Lenny crawls out of the darkness, her eyes glowing yellow, and I love that effect because it's so creepy. But she just like flicks the spoon and causes this loud noise, and then whenever they meet up again, they're trying to fuse back together, but for some reason, girl Carrie can't fuse into his body. And then all of a sudden, like, something happens and we can't really see. And then she turns around and Guy Carrie's arm is sticking out of her body. And so apparently now she is the one that is holding them. Like, her body is the one that holds both of them. I don't know how that happens. Honestly, I'm not even really sure how their powers work to begin with, because they didn't really give us a clear indication of what they do. I know that she is very physical and he is more mental, but I don't really know what their fusing does. Like, I don't know. I know they have to do it sometimes because they were talking about that at one point, how they hadn't fused for a while and they were both getting weak. But I still don't really know what they do, like what that point is. And so I don't know what this means, the fact that they've switched now and she is the one that's on the outside and he's the one that fuses into her. I don't know what that means for him. So I will say that is one little complaint that I have about this, is that I don't really know what this means. She kind of explains, it feels like she's been turned inside out, but they need to explain a bit more what exactly their powers are. With that being said, another thing that I really liked in this one, we see at one point after David talks to Farouk in the middle of this, I guess, imaginary desert. I don't really know what it's supposed to be, but he's talking to him and, comes to terms with the deal and stuff. I like their little fight. It starts as a wrestling match, and then all of a sudden Farouk's like, you're still fighting the wrong battle, and then all of a sudden he has a sword, and then it turns around and all of a sudden David is in a tank. I'm just like, well, that's interesting. But after it's all over and they agree to a deal, Lenny all of a sudden shows up and pretty much asks him, hey, can I go now? Because he's been using Lenny's consciousness because he's inside Oliver's body. And I love it makes me think back to the first scene in the first episode. I didn't really know what it meant, but now I kind of get a gist of what's going on. We saw Lenny and Oliver sitting in a pool, and they're just both in there relaxing and don't really know what it's supposed to mean. But then all of a sudden Lenny says, "We're both trapped." And they start laughing, and all of a sudden it zooms out, and it's in, you see a guy's eye, and all of a sudden it zooms out, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it's Farouk. And all of a sudden that zooms out, and it's Oliver inside of a club. And now I realize he's got both Lenny's and Oliver's consciousnesses trapped inside of his mind, which is inside of Oliver's body. And so now that I'm sort of getting this gist, David even brings up at one point in this episode that whenever he's searching for Oliver, sometimes he'll use Lenny as kind of a barricade so David can't read his mind. So I like the fact that it's sort of, you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what Farouk's plan is or why he's using Lenny. But she even brings up in this episode, like, look, you don't need me anymore, right? Last time you needed me because I was kind of the consciousness in David's head. I was the one talking to him and giving him ideas. But now you don't need me anymore because you're out of his body and you two are talking again. And he's just like, where are you going to go? She's like, well, can't you, create me a body? He's like, well, what would you do with that body? I'd live. I'd live the shit out of it. What would you do then? I'd probably die. And then what? So it's almost like he's just saying, what would you do if I let you out of here? You would have no point to your life if I let you out. So that's why I'm keeping you here almost, is because I'm giving you a point. It's kind of disturbing in his own way, but at the same time, like, you kind of get this feeling it does give her a point. It does give her a reason to be. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this, but you can sort of get the sense that Lenny doesn't like being there. She doesn't want to stay there anymore. She would prefer to either be dead or be living again, one of the two. So yeah, I'm curious to see if that's going to lead anywhere, or if that's just kind of a little side thing that they brought into this episode. I assume it's probably going to mean something, because most of the time they don't do... I know they do some random goofy things, but most of the time it's for humor or for quirky stuff. This didn't feel like it was for humor or quirky stuff. It feels like there has to be a point to it. They wouldn't just bring this up for nothing. So I'll be curious to see where that's going. But aside from that, David finally tells Sid about her future self and what their plan is. The head of Division 3 questions David, as well as whatever... I don't even remember the guy's name. It's the one that was the agent in the first season. The one that got half of his face burned off and got his eye punctured. I don't know what his point is to this season so far, because he hasn't really had much of a point so far. I don't know, maybe he will later. But both of them are questioning David, thinking that he's working with Farouk, and of course now we know he is. But of course everyone's standing up for him and just like, no, of course he's not. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't work with Farouk. But with this threat on the way, it kind of feels like maybe they need to. Maybe they need to trust him for now, just to stop whatever this plague is that's going to destroy everyone. So, yeah, with all that being said, really still enjoying what this season is holding. I think they're doing a good job furthering the story, and I can't wait to see what else they've got. So, on to the last of these 3 episodes. See you there. And finally, we have episode 3, chapter 11. So this one really brings some very interesting things to light. We come to find out in this episode, kind of like I thought after the last one, Farouk pretty much tells David that he's not the cause of this psychological virus. We find out it's the monk, and I do find that very interesting because, yeah, I don't really know what exactly the virus is anymore, because at first I assumed it was something that maybe somebody was using to, like, I don't know, spread this disease and try to destroy the world or something. But based on what I've seen in this episode, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what it was. Basically, from what I could tell, the monk that was there was infected with the virus, but it wasn't really infecting him. It was kind of like I was thinking with David, being infected but not really being affected by it. And so he's spreading the virus to everyone because he's a carrier of it, but it's not like he's not doing the clicking teeth thing or anything like that. So don't really know how he's spreading it or why. But yeah, he's spreading it to everyone in the compound, and we find out how it started, I guess. He's sitting there, I guess David sort of read his mind, or he showed David his past or something. But David pretty much saw what happened to the monks after they trapped Farouk's body. And I do like how in the very beginning we see Farouk hanging out with these women, and all of a sudden, like in his glasses, we're seeing the battle that happened between David's dad and him that we saw last season on the board, the chalk drawings fighting each other. And then we see, Farouk being defeated, and then his body just falls over dead. And so the monks trap his body down deep, but for some reason they hear this banging. I don't know whether that means that it's like Farouk's body trying to get out, or Farouk's consciousness trying to get in. I don't know what it meant, but basically we see David is seeing it as well, that this banging was causing the monks to go insane. One starts laughing uncontrollably, and so they start holding him down. These two other ones kill themselves, and all of a sudden it's just this monk that is at the D3. He's the only one left. Everyone else is clicking their teeth. And so apparently somehow he was immune to whatever this virus is. I still don't know what it was. I don't know who caused it. I don't know why it happened. If it was just a result of the psychological torture of, hearing Farouk's body smashing against the coffin they put him in. I don't know if that's what it was, or if it was something else entirely. Maybe we'll learn more as the season goes along, but for right now, I'm still completely confused as to what this virus is and why it's spreading so easily, and how this one monk wasn't or was immune to its effects. Whatever the case, though, we do see he is infecting everyone in the compound. First, David and Carrie, the guy Carrie, come upon Ptolemy, who's been infected. They go into his mind, see he's in a maze, and then David helps him get out by doing some sort of psychic thing, touching his head and causing him to remember again. Because Carrie did point out that the maze is almost like giving people their fantasy, and so Ptolemy's fantasy is to not remember anything, because he forgets everything every 2 seconds. And for him, a guy who literally is all about memory and he remembers everything, one of the fantasies for him would be, to not remember anymore. It kind of makes sense when you have this power to remember everything. You remember every little detail. Yes, that leaves a lot of good memories, but it also leaves all the bad memories as well. There are some memories we just want to forget. And so for him to be able to forget it's a fantasy for him. We see Melanie also infected. Her fantasy is being, I guess, all-powerful is what they supposed. She was almost creating a D&D game. You're at a fork, and they're having to type it into a keyboard, which decision they make. And she's pretty much showing them what happens after those decisions. But then David, I'm pretty sure he told her the story of her and Oliver, and I guess that was enough for her to remember why she is the way she is and her purpose. And so it's enough for her to come down and have David uninfect her as well. And so that's pretty much the last we see of traveling into people's minds until the very end. Guy Carey comes upon girl Carey. We do see earlier in the episode he's trying to teach her how to be independent, I think is the term that he used, because she is now she's not able to just hide out in his body anymore. She has to be in the real world. And so it was pretty funny to see her, she's having to eat, she's having to use the restroom, and all these things are just so foreign to her. But we do see after they all split up, David gets taken in by these little kid soldiers that for some reason are working at D3, which are under the control of the monks somehow. I'm not really sure how he's doing that, but he gets taken in by those, and then Carrie comes upon Carrie, and she's clicking her teeth, and he tries to fuse with her, but he can't. And he's like, "I'm so sorry," and then he disappears. So I don't know if this is, like I said in the last episode, I don't know exactly what the powers are. So I don't know if this is a side effect of not being able to merge with her, or if he psychically put himself into her, and we just didn't. I don't know what all this means. I assume we'll find out later, but it is kind of one of those things where I wish they'd explain a little bit so I kind of know what's going on. But we do see Autonomy and Melanie walk into the main room where the leader of D3 is there, and she, I don't know. It says we, so I assume it's like several people in one body. Maybe I don't know. The basket over its head. Apparently, the monk has connected himself up to the leader and is talking through the leader and is trying to figure out, okay, where's a weapon that can destroy Farouk's body, because we have to destroy him. We have to make sure he doesn't come back to life. And Melanie realizes that David is a weapon that can be used. But of course, the monk realizes, no, you can't trust David because he's been working with Farouk. But before he can tell them that, David takes him up, teleports him somehow, I guess telepathically, up to the roof, and kind of has a little showdown with him. And I did like the conversation going on up there because it was pretty good. Getting to see their clashing ideals. From David's point of view, he sees the future Sid and the fact that she wanted him to help Farouk find his body. The monk, of course, is like, no, you help him do that, he's going to destroy the world, and so they're at odds. I like the fact that they have those differing ideals. But ultimately, David's trying to figure out the location of Farouk's body, and the monk would rather die than give him the location, so he just jumps off the building and dies. So, yeah, there goes, I guess, their chance of finding the body by those means. Of course, David did get to see, through his mind, where the sanctuary that they were is. So I assume he's going to try to use those clues to try to find the body. I guess that's going to be the next step. But at the end of the episode, he sees Sid is clicking her teeth, so now he's gone into her mind to try to help her get out of her maze. I don't know what her maze is going to be. I don't know. I'm not really sure how long this is going to take, because for Autonomy and Melanie, it took maybe 5 minutes each. So for Sid, it could take a bit longer just because maybe there's some more emotional baggage. Maybe we're going to learn more about her history, because honestly, we don't really know her story growing up. We know a little bit. She does talk about in the last episode the music box was from her childhood, and Farouk showed her that, and she's like, I didn't like that at all. So clearly she does have a pretty painful childhood. I don't really know why. I don't really know what caused it. Maybe her powers are what caused it. Maybe she switched bodies with some people and it affected her. But I wonder maybe if we'll get a little insight into that next episode. But overall, that's pretty much all the important stuff from this episode. It's really, really good. The main thing is just the fact that they don't explain everything. And I feel like there are some things that do need to be explained. And maybe they will in the future. But like I said in the very first episode, there are some things that are vague, and there's some things that are very kind of explained weirdly, because that's the point. They want things to seem weird. They don't want everything to be clear cut. However, there are moments where I feel like that needs to be explained. I need to understand, okay, how do Carrie's powers work? Because they never really explain that. We know that they combine. We know that they are two people with sort of one mind, I guess, is the best way to put it. But they don't really explain exactly why they have to fuse, what exactly fusing does. When Carrie disappears, is it because they didn't fuse? I don't know any of this stuff because they never really truly explained it to me. So, there are little things here and there that I don't really get, and I'm not really sure if I'm not supposed to get it or if I'm going to get it later. So that's probably the only complaint I really have about this show. But overall, it's very fun to watch. There are a lot of good, fun ideas that they bring up. I love getting to watch some of whenever the guy is narrating and speaking and just pretty much it seems like one of those informational shows that you might find on the Discovery Channel. Whenever he's talking, it is pretty interesting. He talks about this virus that's spread through just kind of like a placebo effect, but he calls it the nocebo effect, where you're being told a negative connotation can bring that out. So if you're told to drink sugar water and the doctor tells you this might make you vomit, you have a higher chance of vomiting. That type of thing, I don't know. I find it very interesting. Psychology for me has always been something that I know I would not be good at, but I do find it interesting. So anytime something psychological comes up, I'm always interested to learn more. So I don't know. I like those parts of it. The show itself, very funny. One thing I haven't talked about that I did want to bring up is the fact, I mean, Dan Stevens, perfect fit for this show because his dry reactions, the way he reacts to certain situations. I mean, perfect example in this episode, the cow pops up, and of course they're like, "What do you want us to do with the cow?" And he's just, the way he reacts to it, it's like he's the only sane one. He's like, I don't care. It's a cow. You can leave it behind. We got to go do this. The way he reacts to situations is just absolutely perfect. So it's just something I wanted to bring up. I think the casting decision there was spot on. I can't think of anyone else that could have made that work as well as he has in both of these seasons so far. So that's it over these 3 episodes. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts over these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Also, if you have any theories, obviously, if there are any spoilers from last night's episode, keep them out of it if you can. But if you do have theories for some things that haven't been explained yet, please let me know because I'm curious to see what other people think as well. So yeah, that's it. Leave a like and subscribe, feature Legion Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.